Hello and welcome to a new edition of Planet Waves TV. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, the host of Planet Waves FM and the author of the Planet Waves horoscope, here with an edition of Planet Waves TV for the 4th of August, 2022. This edition is also a supplement to tonight's editions of Planet Waves, the subscriber issue. I've been on the public health beat for the most part and have not written astrology this week, so this is an astrology presentation that takes us out through the full moon of August 11th, 2022. August 11th is a Thursday, so I guess that's a week from today. I'm planning on taking next week's horoscope off and laying low as much as I can to at least get a bit of the summer. So next week is my chosen week, and thank you to any for whom that might be a slight inconvenience. All right, so I've got with me here the full moon chart. This is glued to the back of a book that Planet Waves is offering called The Everlasting Forest by Lanvi Wynn, the artist who does all the amazing work, and we'll put an ad purchase opportunity for this book right onto the front of planetwaves.net, and you can check your email today if you are on our list. Okay, so the full moon chart is pretty interesting, and this is because it is part of a grand cross aspect. You'll see that I've drawn the cross in here, and we've got is the moon is full. Let's come in a little closer. The moon is full in Aquarius, and that means that the sun is in Leo at opposition to the moon. In astrology, the Earth is depicted in the middle. And then this whole arrangement is square the lunar nodes, and the lunar nodes are pretty packed. They're in Taurus and Scorpio, and the Taurus end is loaded, and that is loaded with Mars in late Taurus and Uranus kind of in the late side of middle Taurus. Here you can see this. And so what we have, for one thing, is the sun square the lunar nodes. The sun is right here at 90-degree angle to the nodal axis. And that means we're halfway between the eclipses. And it's also sometimes said to be something called moon wobble. That's a term of astrology that I learned from my old friend David Wilcock, and I have trouble documenting what that's about from any kind of a classical or traditional standpoint, except to say that what we know, apart from any moon wobbling, is that the lunar nodes are very sensitive to things that are at a 90-degree angle to them. So when something is at a 90-degree angle to the nodes are here. I guess I could make that a little bit clearer with drawing a little orange line here in my high-tech graphic system. The nodal axis is shown by this orange line here that goes here, and the sun is at a 90-degree angle to that axis. And so one of the first things, and soon will be, so one of the first things to know about anything that is square the lunar nodes, since a lot of you have points that are square the lunar nodes, is that things that are at 90 degrees to the nodes act as if they are sitting right on the nodal axis, so that you have to pass through whatever is square the nodes on the way to doing the nodes. And the nodes are important and for many people difficult to understand. I feel like I learn something new about them every time I work with them. But the nodes are a kind of psychic digestion system where things pass through, and sometimes they seem to pass from the south node Ketu to the north node Rahu, or in the other direction, and sometimes the nodes represent a balancing act. But the nodes are an essential, let's say, processing engine in any chart. And they're one of the most helpful things to work with in terms of understanding the kinds of messages that your chart is sending to you. Study the lunar nodes and study the planets that rule the nodes and see where they are. In the case of this chart, the planets that rule the nodes are Venus and Mars, so I'll be spending a little bit of time talking about the positions of Venus and Mars and how to work with them. And I'm sorry, I haven't done video in a couple of weeks, and so I'm like, oh, everything feels awkward. And how did I get all that stuff to fit in the frame? And how anyway? So bear with me while I settle into this new, for now, new environment. I'm one of these presenters who prefers to work in the dark room known as radio, but I like video. You like video, so let's keep it going. Okay, so another thing about the full moon is that it can represent the breaking of a deadlock. It's easy to imagine that as the moon comes to an opposition with the sun, it's a point of maximum stress or tension, and that has a way of kind of loosening things up or snapping things. And so over the course of the next week, as you go through the events of your life, I would suggest going on momentum rather than on trying to push the river in some way or force things, and ease up on the forward pressure and allow the momentum of the moon reaching opposition to the sun to help you enhance that your direction of travel and provide the energy rather than you pushing. And this is difficult because we are so conditioned to push in our society, and then there are people who get exhausted from that and they slack, and they don't really want to do much. So you've got kind of your pushers and your slackers, and we need to take a little bit of a balance between the two with this full moon happening, because there's a lot of momentum and because this full moon is extraordinarily powerful, if only because it's making a square to the lunar nodes, but also because it is making a square to the conjunction here of Mars and Uranus, which is still in effect, and it is also making an opposition square to Saturn. The moon will be conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. So there's a lot of planets involved. Planets are sources of energy, and so when they are all lining up like this, and you get this very unusual pattern of a loaded lunar nodes plus loaded moon in the full moon chart, you want to just go with the flow a bit more. But even if you're not, frantically rowing the boat, keep your hand on the rudder and make sure that you're guiding your direction of travel. If anyone who's ever gone canoeing knows that you go over the rapids just fine if you point the canoe straight in the direction that you want to go, and then you can tip your canoe if you go through the rapids or over a small waterfall with the canoe sideways, can just roll right over like it wasn't even floating. And so this is why you want to put most of your energy into just guiding your vessel straight through, and you will stay upright. Okay, so now there are a couple of events. First of all, as of today, Mercury has entered Virgo. There's a Mercury retrograde coming up in Virgo, which spans between September 9th and October 2nd. Mercury goes retrograde for about 22 days, about 3 times a year. So that's 3 weeks, 3 times a year. And then you have to add a margin of about 2 to 3 weeks on either side of that retrograde. We're not quite in that yet, but that's the Mercury shadow. And then typically, the most intense days of Mercury retrograde are the ones that immediately surround the station retrograde or the station direct. We have more than a month as of this recording to work our way up to that, but it is noteworthy that Mercury entered Virgo today, the sign where it will be retrograde through the entire retrograde process. Then the next major event coming up is Mars square Saturn. Mars in Taurus square Saturn in Aquarius. That's on Sunday. the 11th. Now, that's a potentially tense aspect for a lot of people, and depending on where it falls in your chart, can be responsible for various kinds of tension and conflict and intertension. In this week's horoscope, I have done a lot of interpreting the Mercury square Saturn aspect to provide some guidance on that and to make sure you have a sense of how that will work in the context of your chart. With a chart like this, there's not really a context, though I have used Leo as the as the hypothetical first house because the sun is in Leo. But when we talk about the meaning of an aspect or how it's going to influence your life, you want to look at it in the context of your own sun sign or your own rising sign. And that is what I do in the horoscope. I contextualize the astrology to make sure that you have a sense of, or at least a better sense than you might, of where it fits your personal astrology. So that's where the horoscope column, the general horoscope column, is actually quite contextualized. There's very few things in life where you get 12 options for how to read the same thing. Usually it's paper or plastic, credit or debit, smoking or non-smoking, as they used to say, male or female, men's room or ladies' room, gluten-free or full of gluten. But with astrology, we have 12 options for how to read everything. And what I do in all of these 12 sign readings is I reread the chart 12 times to bring it closer to you. That's pretty good. If anybody knows of anything else that comes in 12 varieties to make it customizable, please tell me. And of course, the thing with that is that for many people, 11/12 of the work of the horoscope is lost because they only read one sign. I try to make the horoscope worth reading every sign, particularly if you know your rising sign and your moon sign. Just have fun with it and use it as a kind of a self-creative thing and also an astrology teaching tool. Personally, I learned how to read astrology by cracking a horoscope written in the New York Post by a man named Patrick Walker. And while I had some astrology background before I did that, you probably have more than I had just going into this project of understanding how the Patrick Walker horoscope worked. And merely through reading a newspaper horoscope, admittedly a very good newspaper horoscope, I was able to figure out all the basics of astrology, to understand the difference between a sign and a house, and to understand what a transit is and how a transit influences a person. And then after I did that for a while, I started writing a horoscope column at the same time I kept deepening my investigation of astrology, reading almost all of the books on that bookshelf, and many articles, and then interviewing and corresponding with dozens of the astrologers who were most familiar in the late 20th century and early 21st century. So my point is that you can do quite a bit with a horoscope column. It can teach you a lot of astrology if you're paying attention to what you're reading. And I, these days, always include the chart with the horoscope. So there, if you're on the Planet Waves mailing list, everyone will get the previews of the horoscope and the horoscope chart to look at. Okay, so back to the chart itself. A few things are going on. One of the things going on is that Mercury's changed signs, and then ahead and is in position for the retrograde now. And then, in addition, Venus is about to change signs. Venus is currently working its way through late Cancer, will be in opposition to Pluto through the week. That is intense. That is sexually deep, maybe even a bit adventurous. The Uranus and Taurus thing with Mars there adds some of that sense of adventure. Venus in Cancer opposite Pluto lends itself well to the sensation of depth and a sense of urgency, and we can say is a reminder of the beautiful holiness of lust. something that I think we need to embrace rather than avoid. We live in a society where any discussion of sexuality is usually considered inappropriate, no matter what it is, if it goes on for longer than 15 seconds. And so I continue to encourage conversations about sexuality, in particular your sexuality, with people you consider intimates that last longer than 15 seconds and might even last 15 minutes or stretch out over 15 hours. And as part of any meaningful conversation about sexuality, the thing you want to have in there is a lot of self-disclosure. If you know that you're having a conversation about sexuality and you're not saying anything that you are concerned might jeopardize your relationship, you're probably not saying the things that you need to say. If you're concealing elements of your past, if you're concealing other elements of your personal history, if you're concealing what you want, or if you are framing everything in the context of the relationship you're in now, that is probably not an honest conversation. The conversation starts to become honest when it is about your place now in life in the context of the rest of your life. And remembering, as Neil Young said, that all these lovers are passing through you in the end. And I think that all of us need to honor the fact that we are passing through one another's lives, and to honor the fact that there are other people passing through our partners' lives, and that our partners need to be hip to the fact that there are other people passing through our lives. And remember that all of these planets are in motion, and they are in motion in very significant ways right now. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, the lunar nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, and so that emphasizes the reading of the movement of Venus and Mars. And so to frame that in a little bit of context, we have a lot of activity on the North Node right now. Again, here it is. I'm not putting in everything that is there. Saturn is out there at the very end of Taurus as well, and there's a couple of other things. But mostly we have the North Node, Uranus, and Mars, and that is a lot of desire. And there's absolutely nothing well-behaved about the Mars-Uranus conjunction, particularly conjunct the North Node, which is a kind of an evolutionary magnet saying, okay, we must try this now. Right? Can you say that? To whom can you say that? Is this a secret that you carry around in your own mind? Why is it only in your own mind, if so? And isn't it such that everything that you keep concealed and private in your own mind eventually just is added to the pile of dirty little secrets? So the question about sexuality is, where can you actually speak your truth? Where can you actually take part in a relevant, meaningful analysis of anything, what you think, what you say, what you want, what you've done? And by analysis, I do not mean a dissecting for the purposes of judgment. Why don't we just start with what is fun, why it's fun, what's meaningful to you, and just being sincere about what it is you want. Now, as I've said a number of times, and probably said 3 times so far in the past 18 minutes, is that what you want is something you may feel is threatening to people in your life and jeopardizing. And there's really only 2 ways to go. Well, 3. One is to keep quiet and do nothing. One is to keep quiet and do things behind the back of people. And another thing is to be open and have the conversation. As one of my wayshower writers, William Pennell Rock, wrote in a brilliant article called Jealousy in the Abyss, only truth is erotic. Okay, so having said that, we've got Mercury in analytical Virgo. We've got Venus in Cancer, emotional, sensitive, cyclical, somewhat self-centered. Cancer opposite Pluto, subject to that intensity and that, let's say, the unfurling of long repressed desire. So that is a representative of the North Node there. And then we've got Mars on the North Node, kind of in its opposite place, either in fall or in detriment, acting as if it is in somewhat unfamiliar territory, recently charged up by a conjunction to Uranus, making it want to break free and be independent. Remembering Uranus is still in Taurus, that's about expressing your own values. Mars is still in Taurus, that's about expressing your own values. It's about expressing your own desire. And before you can express anything, you have to know and articulate to yourself what it is that you want. Now, Venus makes its opposition to Pluto. That'll be intense. That's happening basically right now and will be happening through the full moon. Then at the time of the full moon, it enters the Leo, whole different color, whole different vibe and shift in energy. And bear in mind that all of this is going on in the context of this Grand Cross aspect that is square the lunar nodes. So it's very, very charged up astrology. And that indicates a kind of an action-packed week ahead into the full moon. So this is one of the reasons why I'm emphasizing doing less rather than doing more, not rowing the boat so hard, but rather keeping your hand on the rudder and keeping your eyes ahead and looking a little bit to the left and to the right and studying the banks of the river as you do. If you've ever taken a long canoe trip, you're looking at the river and the river banks and paying attention to your boatmate and colleagues and generally paying attention. But again, the emphasis on awareness rather than on speed or the effort at propulsion. One other thing worthy of note is that, and though it's, it doesn't need to be drawn into this chart, I've been writing and talking a lot about Mars making a retrograde in Gemini. That spans from 30th of October through about the 25th of March, though altogether, 25th of January. So again, let me say that again. The Mars retrograde spans from about the 30th of October to about the 25th of January 2023, but there's a wide margin on either side when Mars will still be in Gemini. So Mars enters Gemini on August 20th. That is when we're going to get our first clues about the messaging coming from, let's say, the robot, the messaging machine, that will grow in intensity as Mars reaches the point where it stations retrograde on the 30th, which it is doing in a square aspect to Neptune. Now, I've illustrated this, I think, in the previous video. I will have more to say. Probably my next video will focus on Mars in Gemini. But what I've been cautioning about is to me, this complete aspect pattern of Mars moving through Gemini, stationing retrograde in a square aspect to Neptune, and then backing up in Gemini, stationing direct in Gemini, and then moving back into a square with Neptune, the peaks of that being basically October and November are the first square, which are kind of morphed into one, the retrograde and the direct and retrograde, and then the second square in essentially the third week of March, to me represents some kind of watershed event that is going to be similar to January 2020, which blindsided all of us. There were, when you look back, when you study the chronology that I've written, you can see all the clues were there. The Netflix special, featuring Bill Gates in November, and Event 201, and Operation Crimson Contagion, and Tony Fauci on C-SPAN talking about the mRNA vaccine and blah, 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 blah. All the warning signs were there that something was afoot. And we were not studying for that kind of pattern recognition. Who the hell heard of Event 201 in 2020? Some people, but hardly anyone. Who caught that universal flu vaccine probably at 11 o'clock at night on C-SPAN, featuring Tony Fauci and a bunch of flu magnates? The problem is while we were all looking the other way, it all came true. It all happened as planned, as stated, down to the last detail. So I'm suggesting now that we pay attention to what's going on, listen to what these people are saying, and try to get a reading on what they are doing. Today's lead article in Planet Waves addresses this monkeypox issue. I've been writing quite a bit about this sham. It is completely a sham. There is no monkeypox virus. There is no monkeypox test. There is no monkeypox. Anybody getting sick is likely to be trying to anybody getting pustules on their skin is very likely trying to clear toxins out of their system. That's what skin pustules are. And this is not going to be addressable by taking more poison. You know, when you're purging and cleansing and detoxing, you want to take less toxins in and give your body a chance to purge. In addition, anything that we've been told was called a flu or a cold was additionally a purge. That's why your mucous membranes act up and your nose gets runny and your eyes get puffy and you're sweating and you've got a little fever. It's just your body in cleanse mode. Not that hard to understand. But if you suppress that by taking all kinds of things that dry out your mucous membranes and suppress your cough and suppress your fever, you're not going through that cleanse right at the time your body needs it the most, but instead you're introducing more toxins, more suppression to your to your body, and this does not make it. It's not a setup for being healthy. You want your bodily systems to be doing all their things that they do as normally as they possibly can. Okay, so I'm planning an edition of Planet Waves FM tomorrow night. These days I have been starting Planet Waves FM, available at planetwaves.fm, usually by 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays, with an astrology wrap at the beginning of the show, and then I go into more topical subjects. So I'm planning on that. For next week, when I'm in my slowdown, mid-August slowdown week, I have an interview with Amanda Vollmer that's currently on my Odyssey channel, not suitable for YouTube, but we'll have that on Odyssey and on Planet Waves FM. And if you like children's books or have a kid you love in your life, check out this absolutely stunning work by Lanvey with the most delightful illustrations and a story. I'll hide behind this. A story that is you could give this book to the most PC person in the world, even PC principal himself, and he would not find anything to take offense at. And I reckon that even Donald Trump or Alex Jones, the most far right person in the world, would like it just as much, because it is pure beauty and designed to spread a little bit of peace and good vibes. And we're happy to be carrying this as part of the repertoire of projects that Planet Waves offers. The Leo birthday reading is still available. We'll probably run a sale on birthday readings this weekend, so watch for that email. Get on our email list, and I've got a Substack account going, planetwavesfm.substack.com. It's fabulous. I have found my voice in a kind of a new phase of my investigative reporting, writing columns on Substack. People have very generously been becoming paid subscribers to that. It increased donations to our nonprofit substantially in July. So thank you very much. Thank you to my clients, my subscribers, my viewers and readers. I love you dearly. And I'll be back another time. Thanks for listening, and catch you tomorrow night on planetwaves.fm. Bye for now.